Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rugby League Coach podcast. My name's Taylor Brown. I will be hosting today's episode, and I'm joined here by James Varley. Varley, you're back, mate.
I'm back, mate, after a while. It's been a few weeks.
Sounds like Barry White.
Yeah.
He's back. There's been comparisons to Barry White, Darren Lockyer. It's all been throwing around to Mr. James Varley. We're also joined by Rosie in the fluoro orange. I don't know if you're going off to work after this, mate, but
No, I'm just getting. It's just bad camera. It's just the red.
I was just going to say, is it orange or red?
No, it's definitely red.
He's just escaped from Waco.
Yeah, and ran down the M4.
And then, of course, as always, joined by Lee Addison from the rugbyleaguecoach.com.au.
Ain't this our half century?
It is. It's episode number 50. It is episode number 50. So, yes, you can raise the bat, Lee. Raise the bat.
Got a clap. It's episode 50. Reached the 50, James, clap.
Go on, James.
Half century. Rosie, half century. God, that was like herding cats, that.
Oh, yeah, blood from a stone. That was good. But yes, Lee, it is episode number 50 of
we were going to do it live, weren't we? But we've had a bit of a drama, so we'll do it live.
Well, to be fair, we said we were going to do the first year live, and that would technically be episode 52 because there's 52 weeks in a year. Yes, it would.
No, it wouldn't, because we had a year anniversary 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, but that was the year since we started. But it's not a year's worth of content, really. 52, you know what I mean? So that's
You two sound like a married couple.
Oh, well.
Yeah, double the work.
We go to bed together about as regularly.
yeah, so even more so, if I'm being honest. Lee,
just for clarity, everyone, I don't go to bed with Taylor Brown ever.
Unless he wants to go around the town with Taylor Brown. I would like to say a little thank you to Special Ops Socials. Special Ops Socials is the main sponsor of this podcast and brings you this content to your beautiful ears via Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, and the rest. So thank you very much to Special Ops Socials. Now, Lee, we want to start this podcast off, although it is the Rugby League Coach podcast. You had a moment on the weekend where you said you cried in front of the TV several times. It was one of the happiest moments in your life.
Yeah.
You and it was inherited. I think your old man was a Man City fan originally, and you did it. You got the treble done on the weekend. Now, explain to a few people that may be an oval ball fan as opposed to the round ball fan exactly how much this means to a young Lee Addison.
Well, I actually don't think I've seen any passion in Australia for anything that compares to what English soccer fans and soccer fans in general go through. But if you imagine the strongest rugby league fan that you can imagine supporting a team from the womb and then being an absolute yo-yo team. So it might be something like North Sydney Bears coming back from the oblivion, or maybe Manly Sea Eagles, like they disappeared for a bit, or South Sydney, and then winning the Holy Grail. It's a bit different because the Champions League is bigger than the Premier League and the FA Cup, so it's another tier again. But City have been a yo-yo team most of my life. They got a lot better in the last decade or so. And now they're the dominant force in English football, and they've now completed a treble and are only the second team in British history to do that. The other one was Rosie's team in 1999. Both teams from Manchester, which is amazing. So, but when I'm saying to you, explain the most passionate rugby league fan it's because your average soccer fan over there tends to be that passionate. Don't they, Rosie? It's literally a way of life.
The only more passionate fans I could probably say are Brazilian soccer fans, but they're just dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, the English have had their moments too. My dad has a Manchester City tattoo on his left arm, I think it is, or his right arm, yeah.
I saw a photo you put on Facebook of your dad. That was at the FA Cup.
Where he was cheering. Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I'm a Manchester United supporter, but the best team won. They've been the best team for so long.
Yeah.
I did see, and this might be a coach question further down, is I did see that Guardiola's not renewing after 25. Do some coaches just sort of go, I've done my job, I now need another challenge?
I think it's having to rebuild teams or build things from scratch takes a lot of heavy lifting. So Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, this should be called the football podcast, but he was very good because he was able to keep reinventing a new side every 3 to 5 years. And that takes a special kind of something inside, I think, to keep being able to do that. I don't think it's definite that Pep will leave in 2025, but right now I don't think he can see himself building another super team. I know in the jobs that I've done, I always seem to get an underdog that needs building or rebuilding, and it just takes so much energy just to get to a level to compete.
Mm.
And then to compete and get them to be the best is another effort again. So that double effort that goes into creating that is a problem. So I guess with something like a dynasty, I think you have to maintain such high standards all the time. So that's probably behind Pep's thinking right now.
Because I suppose one of the hardest things is winning it, then maintaining it and staying consistently at the top.
Well, unlike a school team or a junior team or whatever it may be, you can have some players in your team for 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, but eventually they're going to get older. And the key to all successful clubs in any walk of sporting life is the ability to move players on. I nearly said get rid, but that sounded a bit harsh. But move players on when everyone else thinks you're crazy for doing it. But they go somewhere else and you can sort of see why they did it. I guess the best example of that recently has possibly been Adam Reynolds in Rugby League, although you're not too sure if that was the right decision completely. But the way Souths have performed this year, you sort of can see the plan that they've got. I mean, that's probably the best example of it. But if you're going to stay at the top of your sport, you've got to move players on before they become surplus to requirements, not when they've become surplus to requirements, basically.
Well, I'll give an example from a long time ago. Wigan got rid of Hanley when he had a couple of years left.
Yeah.
And he did really well for Leeds, but he just had a couple of years left.
He was a bit heavier, wasn't he? He was a bit slower then.
And Bennett did it with Wally Lewis, and everyone thought he was crazy. And I think they ended up winning the comp 2 years later. Yeah.
Well, the Roosters did it with Mitch Pearce, so there you go. There's definitely a blueprint there that we see in rugby league. And just to be clear, Lee, people won't be upset that this should be the soccer podcast, because it's very much about rugby league as much as it is about coaching on this podcast, as we very much know.
Very true.
And what we've just done there is spit some facts about coaching, and it doesn't matter what ball it is, does it?
Only with my expert skills of massaging it that way.
Yeah, and I guess the other side of the thing is it's called the Rugby League Coach Podcast, and you're the Rugby League coach. So you do whatever you want. And while you were talking, I did text Special Ops Socials, who are the driving force behind the podcast, and from a board level, approved. So don't worry about it. It's all good. It's all good. So typically, especially when we have guests, what we will do and what we would do is that we'd go around and people would have designated they would have topics and ideas that they wanted to bring to the table. But I thought we'd do something a little bit different this week. And it's because, Lee, you had me all up in the feels. You've been posting, can I say, a part 1, 2, 3. It seems like a Netflix docu-series at this stage about your the beginnings in the coaching life of Lee Addison. I don't know if we'll ever get a Netflix docu-series about it. And if we do, I would highly suggest that I'd be played by one of the Hemsworth boys, or probably Brad Pitt, because I will feature heavily.
Kurt Reynoldson's playing me. So.
Kirk Reynolds from the Newcastle Knights. What a throwback.
Barry Ward's playing me.
Kirk Reynoldson's an ugly Rosie. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Who's playing you, Varley? If this was a Netflix docu-series.
Darren Dare I ask for a nomination? Barry White,
He'd probably bring in Wayne Bennett, Varley. He'd want Wayne Bennett. So let's go, and I have got your post put up here, and there is a very young Lee Addison surrounded by what is, if you read in the post, a university team.
Yeah,
and it's your first year when an illness hit you in your second year at university, and it forced you into the coaching world.
Yeah, I lost a load of weight. I could probably do with it again now, the illness, just to drop some kilos. But something came over me. I don't know what it was to this day. It was like a flu that I couldn't shake or something. Maybe it was a really bad flu that was, I don't know what it was. And doctors were a bit bemused by it, but I just didn't play for a while. Lacked a lot of energy and everything. And in my second year at uni, the coach that we'd hired, because what happens is at university, the students run the team. So there's a committee and there's also a captain. And traditionally what used to happen was the captain used to coach, but we decided we needed a coach. But he actually had a real bad accident and got ruled out for the year. So what happened was occasionally I ended up taking sessions. And I remember that season got really battered by weather and whatnot. So it was only a couple of sessions, but it was literally just me in my role as the captain at the time, barking instructions at players and making them run a lot and do drills that I could remember my coaches telling me to do.
Right.
That was it. And that was my second year at uni. And then in my third year at uni, I'm walking through what you call Freshers' Fair in England, which is in Freshers' year. They try and sign you up for university teams and clubs. And I'm walking with my then partner. And I said to her, let's go past the rugby league tent. Let's see what they're doing. And they're like begging me to play again. And at the time, I'd got a job at Wigan Warriors as a media manager when I finished university. So I was part-time there while I was at uni. And I didn't want to be going in work with black eyes and this, that, and the other, and whatever else you get, or broken kneecaps, or whatever you get from playing rugby league. So I said, no, I'm not playing in my third year. I want to concentrate on my studies. I remember doing my dissertation in the office at the club.
Yeah. Right.
And they said, well, why don't you coach us then? And I said, why the hell would I want to do that? And then they did what you should always do with me, Taylor, which is, well, no, you were good last year, Lee, when you did a couple of sessions. We really enjoyed them and blah, 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 blah.
Pumped up the tyres a bit.
Correct. I went, oh, do you think so? Yeah. And I said, I'll do next Monday for you, and then you can find a new coach. Well, I don't know if they never found the other coach.
The search party's still out for that coach.
Yeah. So that's how it happened. And that year we finished second and got promoted. So
yeah, good.
Yeah, we only lost 2 games by 4 points.
So you got the coaching bug there.
I got something like a coaching bug, yeah. But obviously I was only 19, 20, and I thought to myself, well, I've still got time to play and whatnot. So I wasn't completely sold on the fact that I should coach. I mean, I bet the boys can imagine what I would have been like when I was that age. Or I wasn't the most diplomatic at times, like on the field, like yeah, there was definitely something in it. I really enjoyed getting a group of blokes and giving them some direction and putting them through the paces, if you like, but also them responding to it and enjoying it. But I just copied my old coaches, Vinnie Webb, John Kane, Steve Evans. I just copied what I'd done. Ian Wade. I just copied things from him.
Well, that probably brings up your part 2 and almost your next stepping stone is your time with Vinnie Webb. As someone who obviously saw something in you at an early stage. And
you've met Vinnie, haven't you, James?
I have met Vinnie, yeah.
Did you enjoy coaching with him?
Yeah.
What did you pick up from him?
Just picked up interesting stuff that he learns at the movement of players, watching for that, really. It's just really interesting, knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So through the university system, I ended up coaching a regional team, and I guess in that role, I just ended up talking to him about the caliber of some players that were coming through and gave him a report on some of the players and this, that, and the other. And obviously somewhere along the line, he saw enough in me to think, oh, I can take you as an assistant. But at the same time, I'd also ended up by default as the England students coach. So I was an assistant to Richard Agar. I was put as an assistant, as an ex-England Students International. I was sort of fast-tracked to be an assistant coach to Richard Agar, who's now the Warriors assistant coach, Taylor.
Yeah.
And Brendan.
Doing well.
The Leeds Rhinos coach, formerly. I think he coached Wakefield as well, didn't he, James?
Yeah, Hull FC as well.
Hull FC. And I remember meeting him and we were sat at a pub in Featherstone somewhere or something. And then we were talking about all the plans and everything. And a couple of weeks later, he got a professional job. And I was the last man standing. And we had a tour to Germany a few weeks later to play the British Armed Forces over there in 2 matches. So there we were. We just got on with it. And that was a real funny time in the sense that when I look back on it now, I was still one of the boys. I was really one of the boys.
Well, that's what I was about to ask. How old were you yourself at this stage? You still couldn't have low 20s coaching against,
20s,
yeah, obviously a school, a student side, and then against British, what did you say, a military side, did you say?
British Army, was it?
So the English student side, so you got England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and you got Great Britain, right? Vinny took me as assistant with Great Britain, but I was the England students coach at age 22.
Yeah.
Right? England universities. And we went and played the British Army in Germany.
So those fellas would be mature men in the army, I suppose. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And we stayed in the barracks with them and everything. And we basically drew the series, and the score lines ended up equal. So 44-44 over across both games. So they, I don't know how it worked out, but it ended up on aggregate 44-44. So it was a complete and utter draw. I remember that like it was yesterday. But looking back, it ended up being 20 plus players plus me and a couple of coaches. We basically had a party for 10 days. And because obviously being a young fella, I wasn't completely.
Yeah, that's right.
I could have I could be encouraged to let some rules slip. But I seemed to be getting the respect of them as a coach because I had a bit of knowledge about what I was doing. And I think about guys like Billy Slater now and anybody just starting out, and they'll be going through that same thing now, but with their peers. And then hot on the heels of that, we had the touring New Zealand Army side come over.
Yes.
And they were twice the size of the British Army side that we played in Germany.
Oh, I bet.
And it was a 6-game tour. And I remember going to watch them, and I met one of the heads of the British Army, who I still see on television now all the time being interviewed. Apparently he's mates with King Charles. I got introduced to him because it was all army stuff. And everyone was saying to me, Lee, like some of your players are going to get murdered. We were playing at Wigan St. Jude's. They're gonna kill you because they were smashing everybody on tour. So all the different regions in Britain, they were playing their army barracks and they were killing them, like 60-0, 50-0, this, that, and the other. They had a test match against Great Britain Army, the British Army, and beat them in a test match. Then their 5th game was against little old English students coached by yours truly.
And how'd you go?
With 10 minutes to go, we were 20 points to 6 down. We won 22-20.
How good?
Or 24-20, yeah.
How good?
And it was the first time, Taylor, I'd ever done the game plan of just moving them around with +1s and inside balls. You've played under me.
With a similar sort of game plan.
And that's the first time I ever did it.
Yeah, right.
This is what I were going to say, because being a bigger team, we were moving them around.
Oh, yeah. We only cracked them in the last 10 minutes. I remember saying to the team, be patient, be patient, be patient. It's going to come late. It's going to come late, and they're going to whack you. You're going to run, and they're going to whack you. Just get up, play the ball, laugh at them. Don't, it's going to hurt, but just stick with it, stick with it. Somehow we did, and we won. And then I believe the British Army rolled them after that in the last test. It really caused them to question themselves after that.
So after this series by New Zealand, were you, I guess, can I say, is this when you decided that coaching is something you're going to take serious, or were you still something you were sort of, you'd managed to get yourself to a good place and you didn't know how far it could take you? Or when did you flick the switch? Because it seems you made a pretty big decision by having a year off from coaching to study the game further, and it's indicative that you probably made a decision to take it more seriously before that point. So when was the decision to take it as seriously as you do?
So by By the time we'd played the New Zealand Army, I'd had my year away from coaching where I just studied the game.
Right.
So I studied Wigan. I was watching Wigan Warriors that year, every single game. Sat up in every grandstand, home and away, watching Matty Johns off the ball, the work he did off the ball, watching Adrian Lamb, the way he combined with Matty Johns. Because even though Matthew Johns was the junior partner, if you like, of him and Andrew, Matty Johns was a quality player on his own, weren't he, Rosie? Like,
well, he's. I think he's probably a better football brain than Andrew
possibly.
Johns. Yeah,
possibly.
Just like a lot of people say he'd make a better coach than his brother. So he's obviously, and his way he can dissect it. His brother, probably,
Dave Furner was in that team. Brett Dallas, Andy Farrell, the Great Britain captain, Steve Renoff, Terry O'Connor. These are all people who are now on television, or in Andy Farrell's case, he's coaching the Irish Rugby Union side.
The best team in the world now, aren't they?
Matty Johns is a TV host. Adrian Lamb's a successful Super League coach at the minute. So, you know, I was rubbing shoulders with these people, Taylor, week in, week out. But I took the time to study the game. And I also used to study the NRL games Saturday and Sunday morning. And I really went through them with a fine-tooth comb. And what I did in that time was question absolutely everything that had ever been given. So I'll use an analogy. Everyone thinks you should wash your clothes, dry them, iron them, and then fold them up and put them away. Right?
I've never seen you with an iron yet.
Well,
I do have an iron, and I actually don't mind ironing, believe it or not. However, guess how many times I've used the new ironing board that I've got? 0. Because I've worked out if you throw some clothes in some cupboards without folding them, they come out and they're all right. You just wear them for 5 minutes and the creases drop out. So why iron them? Doesn't make sense, does it?
Preaching the choir, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, you know, that's an analogy for the norms that you challenge. So I challenged every single norm in rugby league. Some of them went. I'll give you another one. One on socials I put was about why do halves say 3 in 4, right? I'll give you another one. It was very common that your second row used to be on the back line for the kickoff. And now since then it's changed and the front row has got there. But if you think about your back rower, they should be a combination of speed and power because they're a bit wider and a bit more mobile. Whereas the front rower tended to be a bit more of a battering ram. So in theory, when the ball was kicked off, the second rower should get to the defensive line quicker.
Because
right?
Yeah.
Right? The other thing that comes out of that kind of thought process is how you actually do the kickoff. Because I don't know if you notice, most kickoffs normally just go straight to one of the halves.
Yeah.
It's like an unwritten rule. It's like playing squash where you just keep hitting the ball to the same place. It's like cricket. What happens if somebody just bowled a full toss or somebody bowled a ball that bounced
4 times
halfway? You know, something different would happen. The batsman probably wouldn't know what to do and they might hit the stumps.
So that's why the slower ball works.
That's right. So I challenged every single thought. Absolutely every single thought. And obviously, there were certain intricacies in the NRL at the time and in Super League at the time. I remember very much as well watching Wigan and St. Helens and that rivalry. And Ian Millward had a brand of football that was actually really good at sniffing around the short side and this, that, and the other, and really good at eyes up. And I just developed my own footballing philosophy from there. And I'd say 70% of that still exists today. And it was from that year out.
That challenging the norm too, that's what Benny and Shane did for so long out of the Jets.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, everyone thought that, you know, their idea was time in possession was big. So they were getting off players quick and they were letting them go. But then when they had the ball, they were throwing it around. And then they knew their team was extremely fit, you know, and it won them a national championship.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, that football side, and I remember them literally at training, they used to time their sets. So they used to try and they used to time their sets, how long it took, and they would try and go longer and longer. And when we'd play up against that side, we would train. You'd have to change training completely for 180-minute game of football and then throw it all back out the window again for the next week. It was a complete readaptation process to try and combat it. So, yeah, you're right, Rosie. It was very difficult to adapt to.
I was at the IRL at the time, and I don't know how many nights I just sat there watching them early on in the preseason, sitting there scratching my head. You know, mind you, too, I could tell you a story about those two. Those two are dead set twins. They could sit there in a training session, they'd whistle at each other, and they could have an argument about what they're going to do, but they did not say one word, but they knew exactly what page they were on. It is the most because you get two head coaches, you always question whether it's going to work. But those two, I don't know how they did it. To this day,
the blood's thicker than water, isn't it? So
yeah. So
it's funny you say that, Lee, how you question nearly everything, because I still remember being challenged by you as a teacher in a similar fashion. Challenging things and whatever. And I still remember that being and probably a reason why we headbutted early, but then I got a lot of positive out of it later on in the piece too. Probably does have
a good example, which you'd have picked up on when you were under me, was that just because everybody said somebody should get selected, didn't mean I selected them.
That's right. It almost never happened like that.
When I was Diggers coach under you, Brendan, when you were the ops manager, we had a lot of success because I picked a team, not that the public said I should pick, but I picked a team to do the job. Players that were mobile, that over a 3-day camp type event could recover quickly. Whereas some of the better players in Ipswich Rugby League at the time were heavy and they didn't have much game time under their belts because they played 20-minute stints or whatnot. That isn't conducive to playing 2 games in 3 days. And the amount of grief I got for not picking some of these players. But ultimately, it was challenging the norms that I think got us over the line, because looking at the problem you've got and taking a pragmatic approach to that problem rather than just going with what everyone else says you should do. It's like trying to complete your sets when you've got the fastest winger in town and who's going up against the slowest winger in town. And really, you just take 2 or 3 plays, kick downfield and let your winger score the try. Sometimes.
I think the big thing in this, and this is evident in the Origin now, is if you're going to challenge the norms, you have to be crystal clear in your head what you're going to do.
Yes.
And obviously Billy Slater's made some big calls, but he's crystal clear in his head in what he's going to do. And if people see that you're crystal clear in your head, you know exactly what you're going to do, they're not going to question you.
I will give you against the norm thought that I think would have worked a treat in Origin 1. They should have put Nico Hines in at lock or just in the middle of the field, maybe not even give him a position, and just say, roam around this field.
I think I would have done it differently. What numbers on their back doesn't mean anything. I would have said, Nico, you go right. I might have the wrong sides. Nico, you go right. Luai, you go left. And then have enough faith in Cleary to go, I'm going to determine which way you go, rather than going left all day, left all day, left all day, left all day.
But the reason I'm saying I'm coming up with that lateral thought is because New South Wales weren't breaking down Queensland. They had a load of pressure and weren't breaking them down. When they're not breaking them down, you've got to throw something, you've got to throw some fireworks in there somehow. And I just reckon a Nico Hines just bobbing up in the middle of the field or wherever, left, right, wherever he wanted to, saying, you can do what the hell you want. I've done that. I have sent players out with the instructions of, you can do what the F you want.
There's only certain players you can.
There's only certain players you can do that. And I would put Nico Hines in that category.
Yes, absolutely.
Because in attack, at least, anyway. Right?
Because he'll ask questions all the time.
Yeah. Right?
Just
pop up where you want. If you want to take a carry, take a carry. If you want to pop up out wide, if you want to support. Ellery Hanley was one of those players. Right?
Yeah.
And I would have said to Nico at some point in that Origin, surely it was worth a try with 10 minutes of the first half to go. Just pop up wherever. He might have scored one try that could have put the scoreboard pressure on. So that's the example of challenging the norm. I've played games with one half. I've played games with no halves, Taylor, and 7 props. There's no way we lost the middle then. And the half was the fullback as well. I played an international game for England students. My fullback was the half in attack. My left second row was the dummy half on the left. And my right second row was dummy half on the right.
Paul Green did that. Or there was a number when Wynnum went back to back, and
Jack Granville. Yeah, Jack Granville, hooker to fullback.
Yeah, so he defended at fullback so they could have an extra big fella in the middle. But then when they attacked, he went to hooker, and they had enough faith in guy who played for Wales in the halfback, and I think Dale Zeal would have been there at that time.
Dalzell Don was there, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Dazell Don, yeah.
I think you're talking about Matt Seamark at half.
Yeah, Matt Seamark, that's the guy. Yeah. Hey, Lee, and I know I know this. You say that you studied rugby league for that 12 months, but I know something that you do probably better than a lot of people is you study coaches as well.
And coaching.
Yeah, away from them. Who outside of rugby league, and other than the greatest coach of all time, Sir Alex Ferguson, who have you read and learned a lot from?
So what I think you're trying to say is I study other things rather than just rugby league.
Correct.
So during my 25 years coaching, I've gone from studying the game to studying how coaches coach to studying how best to teach, and then a lot of management and business type stuff to run the organization, if you like. Oh God! If you were to say to me, describe yourself as a coach, Lee, I would say I'm a mix of Vinnie Webb, David Waite, who I worked under at the RFL, Des Hasler, Matt Elliott. I've got bits of them in me. Did I say Vinnie Webb? Yeah.
Yeah, you said
but
it.
also Jose Mourinho.
I know you're a big Jose fan.
Alex Ferguson, because I've read and studied loads of him. Brian Clough and John Wooden, the basketball coach.
So all different kinds of personalities, really.
Yeah. And Bill Belichick. Sorry, that's one more. Sorry. So I reckon I think that answers your question there, Rosie.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But also, I'll give you an example. I remember reading something about Steve Jobs and how he made things so simple all the time, and that simplicity was the key. And some of the most simple things on earth have been the most successful things on earth, i.e. some of the Beatles songs with X number of chords and whatnot. And I always went on a journey to simplify my coaching. Still, there's no room for confusion in my dressing room. If the players are confused, how can they play a physical sport like rugby league? Another book that really, really, really rocked my coaching boat, if you like, was a book called The Inner Game of Tennis. And basically, if I can say this in layman's terms now, it basically says that a lot of our coaching is fundamentally flawed because we like to come out with a lot of terms and recite textbooks to people when we coach to make ourselves sound good. If I was showing you guys how to do a dance, and I said, right, you need to put both your arms 45 degrees in the air, you need to move them around in a circular motion, move your fingers at least 45 degrees at different times, so each finger moves 45 degrees at different times. Your legs, I want them to move them up and down. Can you picture what kind of dance I'm telling you to do now?
Not particularly.
Right? Or if I do this, you'd just copy me, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
For those who are listening, I've just done a funny thing with my arms, right? And basically what this book was saying is that people go on dance floors all the time and just copy each other on the dance floor. Yet when they try and coach each other in physical activities, they come out with all these coaching points and technical points that's like a textbook, and then wonder why their sports people can't carry out the activity. And it talked about getting the feel for these activities and keep teaching your players to have the feel for it. Right? Now you've played under me, Taylor, and you've heard me talk about that. Can you get any sort of flashback to anything where I might have wanted you to get the feel for anything you were doing rugby league wise?
Oh, I just remember. I think what you're saying there about there was no room for confusion in your dressing room. There was never any confusion about what we had to do or where we had to go and what the game plan was, and it was always very particular. And in fact, we probably didn't play our best football when it was against lesser teams, and we perhaps got a little too excited and we went outside of that sort of game plan. I remember one of the worst video sessions we ever had was against after we played a team called Coffs Harbour team in CCC, and I think the words you used were the wheelie bins with bricks in it.
Yeah.
But we got so excited we went outside of the game plan, and it's you know what I mean? It's and that was the rule that we had to keep. So there was never any confusion about what we needed to do or where we needed to get to, and we were a side that we couldn't have. There wasn't much margin for error in our team, really. If there was one or two people or three people off the page, we wouldn't have been successful because we weren't a team of stars. We really were a team.
In terms of the field, what I'd hope you'd sort of remember are things like the intensity of any drills or 13-13 that we did. So I wanted you to feel.
It was very game orientated. All of our training was very game orientated. We did lots of 30. We did 3v2s till our hands bled. And it was all very match orientated the whole time.
And I encourage the defenders to really put the shoulders into you. So if you just look at that as a learning thing, well, anybody can do a good 3v2 when the players aren't ever going to hit them.
That's right.
But then the other thing I used to do was put the defenders closer to you, so you had no time to even think, So, So to answer your question, Rosie, they were the kind of things that impacted me. And then a bit later on, I went a bit more down the business route with some, and so many different business management books and whatnot talked about
Richer Than God.
Eh?
Richer Than God.
Yeah, about Man City. Yeah. No, but
that's a really good book.
It is
how they've changed the culture and the thoughts of the club to where
Another thing is one business thing I learned and one organizational thing I learned is that when you're in an organization, if you get run over by a bus tomorrow, somebody should be able to come and sit at your desk and know exactly how to pick up your job when you're not there. Yeah. That is how an organization works, right? So it's little things like that. I studied the Crusaders in rugby union, the super whatever it is team now, and they don't say to anybody, "This is your jersey." They say you're just holding the jersey for now. You're just protecting the jersey for now.
No one has a mortgage on it.
No one has a mortgage on it, but that's forever. Right? The players there would clean the changing rooms after games. And it was just a completely different feel. My mate Carl Jennings was there for a while. It was a completely different feel. If somebody was going to do a personal best in the gym, a player would ring the bell and everyone would stop and crowd round and get that player through the personal best and stuff like that. So
They do that. They do that a lot in defence as well. So part of the process is you'll do some practice exercises, and to make sure that the next person can come up and do your job, is they'll take the normal, I guess you'd say, the run on player out of it, and then the next one will have to stay. And that's what you're going to do in life, the old Bill Belichick way. Know your job and know the job of the person beside you, because you might have to do their job. So.
So, all these things, everything was learning. I keep saying was because I've not coached a team for a year and a half, but that not necessarily isn't my fault. So, yeah.
I thought when you said that you're going to tell us the end of your story, you might have a big announcement today or something.
Not today. When I get to the end of the story, I might.
You might?
You never know.
You never know. Old Leroy. Someone check his sleeves. Someone check his pockets.
Under sevens at Redcliffe Dolphins.
Nah, he applied for the job, but
Lost out to Taylor Brown.
he lost.
Taylor Brown's got the job, doesn't he?
Yeah.
My career goal is under, what is it, James? You've got?
Under 16s.
I want to be under 16s assistant coach at Keighley Albion.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, I'll
taking the place of James Varley.
Keighley Albion. What's the mascot?
We don't really have one, to be honest. We don't have a mascot.
James is the mascot.
It's one thing. It's one thing I pride myself on in rugby league is everywhere I go, I know the local footy team.
You know my favourite, the Maitland Pumpkin Pickers.
You like the Pumpkin Pickers? Quite a successful team, the Maitland Pumpkin Pickers. Sam Anderson, right?
There's a team out. There's a team out in Roma, and they're called the Red Ants.
The Red Ants. Yeah, there's a couple of crack. I like the Park Spacemen.
That's pretty good.
That's a really good one. The Park Spacemen. There's the Dapto Canaries. I like as well.
Yeah,
that's a classic one. But yeah, there's some.
I always thought the Daptos were called the Dogs because when I used to watch the footy show, they go, "We're going out to the Dapto Dogs."
The Dapto Dogs.
The Dapto must be the Dogs. So.
Yeah.
How many junior rugby league teams do you actually have over there that call like class as amateur that are below Queensland Cup? Are they the loads and loads of teams over there?
There's more within 10 miles here than there would be in Lancashire, I think.
Well, this is it. I mean, like in Bradford, there's about 5 in Bradford now. That's all there is.
Well, Brisbane have Brisbane North, Brisbane South. That splits the river. There's Gold Coast North and South, and there's there's so many, and then Ipswich have their own, and Toowoomba have their own, and this is all just within southeast Queensland. Then
Penrith have got a ridiculous amount of teams.
Penrith's huge. Well, to put it in perspective, Varley, the Dolphins, which is where my son plays, there's 4 under sevens teams. Four under sevens teams.
How many they got the Dolphins? Probably about 600-700.
It'd be more than that. Yeah, it'd be more than that.
We get nearly 1,000 watching it.
Because they used to be Dolphins used to be the second biggest club in Queensland, just behind the Burleigh Bears.
Yeah, they are, and I think once you incorporate all the teams that the Dolphins sponsor across netball, swimming, all those clubs that they actually get behind, soccer, all those sorts of things as a community, they're the largest sporting club in Australia.
Yeah, them and Brothers Ipswich are probably Brothers Ipswich is ridiculous. They do similar up at in Ipswich, and I think that model is awesome. Like not every kid wants to play footy.
Yeah, well, my sisters played netball at the same junior club where I played football at, but it was St Christopher's Panania. So across several sports.
The only other model which is really good is down in Victoria, country Victoria. They play, so the AFL, so every club would have an AFL team and a netball team, and then they have the exact same draw all the way up to A grade, and they just play each other.
River Plate in Argentina do every sport under the sun.
Right.
And we tried to get them to do rugby league. Yeah. Paris Saint-Germain.
PSG,
load of different sports. Yeah.
Yeah.
Barcelona, because they got the basketball as well. And I think
I think so,
yeah.
Yeah. I once played against a 5-a-side team called Leave My Heart Alone.
I don't know if you'll be able to have that anymore. Might be a bit.
I know. And my team was not in your mum's forest.
Oh, jeez.
Hey,
all I'll say is we're getting below the belt here.
Jeez, we're spiraling downhill.
Sorry, Barry.
One last question, Lee. You said obviously a lot of people, and I've seen it pretty. Like a coach of an amateur team, maybe 14s, 15s, 16s, doesn't matter what it is. They'll go to a Broncos training or whatever, and they'll see them doing these complex stuff, and then they'll try and bring it back to some kids that, they're learning the fundamentals of the game. How important is that about understanding the level that you're watching a team at, and then being able to put it back into whatever level you're coaching? Like, I'm pretty sure if James...
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything.
But Lee, shed some light on the fact that I don't even think the top clubs are doing too much that's intense, or it's a lot of fundamental stuff still, isn't it?
There's some coaches out there just do really complicated things, and I'm not going to name any names, but I've seen some at NRL clubs, and they just do these complicated drills that teach nothing but look really pretty, and they put that many cones and poles out that you're worried that planes are going to land on there soon. It's a pandemic in the game. Whenever a coach says to me, "I've got a load of drills that I do," I worry because they're not focusing on skills and they're focusing on pretty drills.
An interesting thing that's coming up that they're trialing over here now in some academy games, only allowed to tackle below the armpit. You're not allowed to tackle any higher than that, and they're trialing that in some games now, which will revolutionise the tackling. You'll have to go in with your shoulder low, because if you go high,
they could fix all this tomorrow. They could fix all this tomorrow if they allowed more latitude to the defence that tackled below the hip.
The grass. They used to, about 15 years ago, there was, if you did a grass tackle, you got a little bit of extra time, but then they got rid of it, and you wouldn't get a broken jaw.
They've created their own problem.
Yeah, there's no advantage to tackling low now. It's got to be the last man going back to the line.
Yeah. So instead, to buy the time, they hold them up, wrestle with them, grapple with them, bend them like a pretzel. And now we've had your chicken wings, your crushers, your spaghetti bologneses, all these different things have come out. But you don't need them. You literally just tackle, flip somebody on the back, tackle somebody around the thighs, flip them on the back. And if you're allowed to climb over the top of them to get back to the marker, fine.
It's all right. Tino will get rid of all the guys that go in with their head high, and he'll sort them all out. One game at a time.
He'll be supported to do so by the NRL post-match committee as well.
Yeah.
So. All right, gentlemen.
You don't mind a pregnant pause, do you, Taylor?
A pregnant pause? What do you mean? Well, I like to let the scenario breathe, and I believe it was the great Lee Addison that actually watched me commentate live and in the flesh at Toowoomba a couple of weeks ago, and he said sometimes I speak just a little too quickly, and sometimes I need to slow down and let just. And that's
there's no time constraints here, though, Taylor. This is
I like to let the air hang, and just let the words do the job they need to. And also it provides a little bit of space where if someone has something to say or another question, they can always just interject and not feel like they're interrupting anyone. Or
it's like a good glass of wine. Just let it air and it'll taste better.
You got to breathe as you sit, mate.
Yeah.
Now I'm thirsty suddenly. All right. Well, that's we basically got parts 1 to 3. Through your Facebook. So, I mean, the good news for the listeners is there is an episode 2 in the Netflix docuseries rugbyleaguecoach.com.au that will come out next week. And I presumably we will also record after the State of Origin for this podcast as well. So keep an eye out for that. We will record next Thursday.
What people can look forward to tales of Des Hasler and Matty Elliott and Penrith and Manly and
St. Gregory's College. Eddie St. Gregory's College.
St. Gregory's College.
Ipswich.
Ipswich.
There's been a couple of chapters for Ipswich.
USA, Poland.
So if we're not meeting again until after Origin, Taylor Brown, what's your prediction and score?
What I will do is I will refrain to comment on prediction and end score and point people to the Taylor Brown Media social pages they will find my predictions on those pages before the game too, because for 2 reasons. One, because it's all about foot traffic, and I've got a very good company in Special Ops Socials looking after that for me, and that's what I'm trying to do. And second of all, because I'm honestly, Rosie, I'm quite on the fence, and I think
I'll tell you as well, Rosie, his tipping is absolutely horrendous. Like I can say it now because I'm on my podcast. I used to listen to you last year on QLS with some of your tips, and I'd look at him and think, does Taylor just trot them out without thinking?
So what's
it literally is horrendous. If you want to know how horrendous he is, listen, guys, to Around the Town with Taylor Brown. You get it on YouTube. We're hoping it can be on some other podcast things soon too.
So Nostradamus, what's your pick?
Yeah.
Queensland by 12-16 at the minute.
Mm.
James?
See, and this is what I don't. You preface it with at the minute. I'm withholding my opinion until at the minute. Jesus, wishy-washy.
I'm happy for people to see the evolution of my opinion.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess that's fair because I did say today, if I was to pick today, I'd say Queensland.
That's right.
And last episode, I said I think New South Wales will steal game 2.
Yeah.
So, I guess there is an evolution of my theory as well.
I tip Queensland, but it'll be interesting because New South Wales, if we don't win this, it's do or die. So that might make it a bit more interesting. But they have tinkered a lot with the team. So
are you reading that off some sort of news article in the background?
I've come out with that myself.
What's going on? What's going on?
I'm doing with my cursor, Taylor?
Sorry?
You know what I'm doing with my cursor on my computer?
You're picking my nose.
Yeah, it's right up your nose.
Pick a winner. How good. All right, well, it's about that time. That's episode 50. That's the half century. Up, done, roasted, complete. Thank you very much to Brendan. Thank you very much to Mr. Varley. And thank you very much to Lee Addison from Rugby League Coach.
50 episodes. That's quite an achievement.
I know 50 episodes. And thank you to our sponsors as well, Special Ops Socials. So,
you're mentioning them.
I'm getting them out there.
Good luck.
So you got to support the people who support us. If you go to specialsocials.com.au/the Rugby
Special
League
Hospital Socials.
Rugby League Coach, your Lee Addison, you may find it. Is there a discount code on checkout? Is there something we can do?
I'll look after it. Any rugby leagues, I'll look after them.
There you go.
Mates rates.
Mates rates. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. You have a great week, and make sure you stay tuned to all the socials for Lee Addison's continued docuseries on the life of Lee. We're going to call it.
I hope I'm not dying.
Oh.